Mark Latham, the One Nation leader, he has not, far from apologising, he's doubled down on those comments that he's been widely condemned for. How will your government seek to work with the One Nation leader?
We're not going to work with him, Kieran. We're not going to support any claim by him to chair a committee in the Legislative Council. I'm not sure who's going to lead the Liberal Party in the next few months, but I'd call on their organisation to make a similar commitment. The commentary that he made in relation to the independent member for Sydney, Alex Greenwich, were vile and obviously hugely disrespectful. I think he's trying to, Mark Latham that is trying to import a US-style, Trump-style approach to politics in New South Wales, but without anywhere near the political success. In fact, One Nation's likely to go backwards as a result of the election result on Saturday. So we're going to make sure that there's an unambiguous and unanimous approach from the opposition against this kind of commentary. And I think the less platforming we give to Mark Latham, the better for the people of New South Wales. And having spoken to Alex Greenwich, he has a similar view.
So just to reiterate, you'll have nothing to do with the One Nation leader as Premier?
That's right. We're not going to work with One Nation. His commentary, his approach to politics in New South Wales have made him, I think, clearly somebody that's approaching politics in a spiteful way. And we've seen, I don't think that it's conducive to good governing, good politics in this state to have him elevated in his status as a member of the New South Wales Upper House. So, look, he's been condemned from nearly every political party in the state, quite rightfully so, and I think he's shown himself to be quite spiteful, Kieran.
Our viewers can see there that the Prime Minister now sitting down with Mary Doyle, and it is, we should just mention that because it is an historic morning for the Labor Party and for federal politics. That's the first time in more than 100 years that a government has won a seat off an opposition. We'll have that news conference with the Prime Minister in just a few moments. But all smiles there, Mary Doyle and Prime Minister Albanese, as they meet this morning. We'll crack on with our interview with Chris Minns, the new Premier. You've got some other challenges, another controversial figure in the Parliament, that being Gareth Ward. You had said you'll continue his ongoing suspension from the Parliament, but is it more difficult now, given Ward has been endorsed by the people of Kiama? He might be facing these charges, but the voters were well aware of that going into the ballot box. Does it make any suspension from the Parliament more difficult for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Kieran. I was surprised to see him return to the New South Wales Parliament by the electorate in Kiama, but that's obviously their verdict. We will seek to move Mr Ward's continuing presence in the Legislative Assembly to the Privileges Committee of the New South Wales Parliament. That was the actions that the previous government took in relation to his compensation in the lead up to the election during the last Parliament. Obviously, they're going to have to weigh up several things, whether Mr Ward would bring the Parliament into disrepute by his continued presence, the decision of the electors in Kiama, and the probable, I don't want to foreshadow this, but the probable appeal by Mr Ward to the Supreme Court to any suspension. Now, I don't want to prejudge their decision-making, but obviously we believe that that's the due process and appropriate response and approach to take, given what are pretty unprecedented sets of circumstances in New South Wales.
Yeah, indeed. So getting advice on all of that does make sense because, as you say, it is unprecedented. You've got a lot of demands on the health budget right now. One friend of ours on Sky News, Pat McGorry, former Australian of the Year, eminent psychiatrist, he calls the adolescent mental health problems right now the shadow pandemic. It really is a crisis, Premier. Is this on your radar?
It is. We've seen recent statistics released just a couple of months ago indicating that there's been a 5% increase in the number of suicides in New South Wales over the last 12 months. Now, that's going in the wrong direction. We've seen major improvements in relation to mental health funding, community awareness, and the ability for people that are going through a very tough period to be able to go out and get the help that they need. But these statistics are worrying because they seem to be heading in the other direction. We made commitments in the campaign for $17 million in additional funding to the Kids Helpline an additional $8 million to Lifeline in particular for their web-based and tech services. And we've announced funding for women's health centres, as well as 5-year agreements rather than 3-year agreements for NGOs in the mental health space. But we need to make sure that we see improvements. And at the end of the day, the money is important. The commitment and resources is obviously important, but we need to see some of those very troubling statistics reversed, and that will be a major priority for my government.
That's good to hear. Another issue that's been raised by a number of public health advocates to me in recent times has been this issue of vaping. It's illegal under New South Wales law to sell nicotine-based vaping or e-cigarette products, but unfortunately across a number of convenience stores and cigarette to tobacco shops, these products are being sold. Premier, will you crack down on this, and will you seek to discuss it with your colleagues at the level of National Cabinet? Because again, it's another looming health crisis that we should have dealt with long ago.
Yeah, the health statistics are really troubling, particularly for young people, and the incidence of people using vaping on a regular basis who are teenagers has doubled just in the last 24 months or 36 months. So we're seeing a larger number of younger people using vaping, which is obviously a major issue. We've committed to making sure that we're rolling out that technology, that signal technology in bathrooms and toilets across New South Wales. My kids tell me that the incidence of it in schools is increasing. We supported the previous government's movements away from vaping being made available to the general community without a prescription. So in New South Wales, you're meant to have a prescription in order to access vaping. I think in practice, many people are able to access vaping without any prescription at all. So compliance is a major issue here, Kieran. We support the current regime, but we need to make sure that it's actually being enforced in the community, because we can't have a situation where we're making major inroads in reducing the number of people that are actually smoking cigarettes, but getting the opposite outcomes when it comes to young people, in particular vaping.
Daniel Andrews has just returned from China. He copped a bit of flack for not taking media with him, but separate to that, this is about trying to rebuild those flows of students from China to Australia. Is this something that you will seek to do as well as Premier of New South Wales?
No, overseas trips and obviously delegations are not a major priority for the New South Wales government. We were elected on very domestic economic issues, the rising cost of living for families, reversing the results in our emergency departments and our schools, and that's got to be the priority of myself and the senior leadership team in New South Wales. We know that, particularly when it comes to international students, education is the second biggest export for New South Wales, and we want to see more international students on the ground in New South Wales, but I believe I can do that on ground here in this state, and we'll be making those representations. But there's big challenges in New South Wales, Kieran. We've got to hit the ground running. I believe that's what we're doing, but that's got to be our priority as well.
And if we just conclude with one of those big domestic commitments that you made, it was the one that I think got the most coverage during the campaign, the commitment to lift the cap on increases for public sector wages. Now that you've got your feet under the desk and you've looked at the balance sheet, can all of this be still delivered on, given you're talking about a debt of up around $200 billion within a couple of years?
Yes, that fundamental commitment to be able to sit down and talk with essential workers in New South Wales, teachers, police officers, paramedics, nurses, is something we're committed to doing. We've had initial conversations with worker representatives, senior union officials in New South Wales, and we're confident of a way through. I don't think that those negotiations will be easy, but the alternative, not doing anything, would see 6,500 nurses leave in the next 12 months. That's what's left in the last 12 months. We need to make sure that we can fill vacancies for New South Wales schools as well. It's an urgent priority. That human capital, when it comes to essential services in New South Wales, is a massive priority for the state, because if we don't get that right, you will not see improvements for schools and hospitals, and I believe that's a major reason why we were elected last week.
Premier Chris Minns, thanks once again, congratulations, and thanks for joining us 1 week on from your electoral triumph. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Kieran.